We're recording. So thanks everybody for joining us this morning. My name is Ashley Kent. I'm the Associate Director of the MSU Extension Local Government Center. And you can see Dan's smiling face on here hanging out in some field. He is our director of the center. I think most of you are probably very familiar with him. And you can see Kelly Lynch on here as well, the Executive Director of the Montana League of Cities and Towns. Plus all of you here, which makes this whole thing worth it. We have a couple of great speakers today. Super excited. Oh, Dan's got a hand up. What's up? Was that
I'm just playing with buttons.
Awesome.
Trying to figure out how to get it down now. Lower hand.
All kinds of smiley emoji reactions at the bottom. So if you want to hang out in edit space, go for it. All right. So this morning we have a couple folks coming to talk to us. First is going to be Cody Ferguson. He is a community planning program manager with the Department of Commerce. And Cody, do you have anybody else from your office with you?
Yeah, actually I have Autumn Coleman, who's the bureau chief, who's in charge of ARPA water and sewer program at DNRC.
Oh, awesome.
So we're going to kind of tag team this. So
cool. That sounds great. So we'll hear from those folks first, and then we'll jump over to Joe. Joe, I can never say your last name, and I don't want to butcher it. Is it Froelich?
It is Froelich. Nice job.
Hey. Joe is a cybersecurity advisor, and so he's going to give us some info on cybersecurity, which I don't think any of us could have enough of. So, does anybody have any questions before we get started?
Ashley, can you hear me?
Yes, Kelly, you're good.
Okay, awesome. I'm all fixed. I also just wanted to welcome everybody. And if Thomas Jonan wouldn't mind turning on his camera, I wanted to take this opportunity to introduce him to everyone. He is the new Deputy Director of the League. And I think, Joe, Thomas, try just flipping up the camera thing.
There we go.
There we go.
I can't hear anybody.
Great, so he's in the same boat as I am. So we'll try and fix whatever is going on over here, but I just wanted everyone to see his face and welcome him. Call him for all of your questions. Thanks for being here, everybody. Thanks, Cody, for joining us, and Joe as well. Look forward to this.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kelly, and welcome, Thomas. We're excited to have you join the whole team, too. All right, Cody, are you ready to take it away?
sure. Yeah, we can get started. So I'm going to share my screen very quickly. So my name is Cody Ferguson. I'm the Community Planning Program Manager at the Department of Commerce. And in my capacity here at Commerce, have been given the task to lead outreach efforts for the water and sewer program for the American Rescue Plan. And then with me, I'm joined by Autumn Coleman, who really is the general behind this whole campaign, and has been directing this, really tremendous effort led by the DNRC in collaboration with the Department of Commerce, DEQ, and the governor's office, and then of course with the help of all of you. And so we want to talk about the minimum allocation grant program. I know that many of you are probably familiar with it. What's important to know about the minimum allocation grant program is that every city and town, incorporated city and town, every county received a certain amount of money. And we'll talk about that a little bit as we move through. And that money can be used on ARPA eligible water and sewer projects. And the eligibility for what that money can be used for has actually been recently expanded. We'll talk about that as well. But what I really want to drive home, and I'm sure what you hear Autumn and I continue to hit on, is that you have to apply and spend this money. You'd apply for it by December 1st, 2023. Is that right? No, January 1st, 2023. Sorry about that. So really, the clock is ticking. We have about less than 8 months left to apply for this money. And then if you don't apply for it, it reverts back to the ARPA competitive program. And that's not the worst thing. But if you want to take advantage of it and put it to work, you really need to be thinking about how to do that right now. And right now, something like roughly half of counties and cities and towns haven't yet applied for it. And so we're going to do a review of the program again, and we'll talk about eligibility on Autumn can give us an update on all the cool things that DNRC has been putting up on the web and where you can find information, and then we can answer questions on this. So with that, I'll just hop into it. And Autumn, whenever you feel like you want to hop in, please hop in, and we can work through this. So yeah, okay, it does work. So for review, House Bill 632 passed by the legislature in the last session, directs how the state of Montana is going to spend its American Rescue Plan money. This was money that was allocated to the states to help them recover and respond to the COVID pandemic. There are a handful of buckets the money can be spent on. The one that we're concerned about here is water and sewer. So there's $150 million in House Bill 632 that goes directly to cities and towns and counties based on the BARSA tax percentage. And I don't know that I could fully explain how the BARSA tax percentage works, but the money you get back in the gas tax, that's what was used to decide how much money each city and town and county received. And you can find that number. I'll show you the website here in a second. But if you go to arpa.mt.gov and you click on the water and sewer program icon, that'll take you to the DNRC site. And then if you click on minimum allocation, it'll take you to a nice dashboard and you can see how much money your city or town or the county is eligible to apply for. The use requirements for this money are based both on the rules that came from Treasury and then things that were laid out in House Bill 632. We'll talk about those. This is different than local fiscal recovery funds. So in addition, this is money that is allocated for water and sewer that's in addition to those direct allocations that came to cities and towns and counties from Treasury, the local fiscal recovery funds. But local fiscal recovery funds can be used as match for the water and sewer money, for the minimum allocation money. What's different about minimum allocation, it can only be used for eligible water and sewer projects. It can't be used for general government services under revenue replacement like local fiscal recovery. And we can answer some questions about that after the presentation if you guys have some questions about that. DNRC will be accepting applications until January 1st, 2023. But we really want to stress, please do not wait until December 31st, 2022 to get your applications in. We really need to get moving on getting the applications in, getting the process. You guys have heard about material supply chain issues, labor issues, inflation. The longer you wait, the more expensive it's going to be, and the less likely it'll be that you can get those funds obligated by the end of 2024 as required by ARPA and spent by the end of 2026. So we really want to get this moving. So where to find your minimum allocation and apply? As I said, go to arpa.mt.gov, click on water and sewer, and then when you're on the DNRC page, go to minimum allocation grant program, scroll down, and you'll see this dashboard on the right, and you can either click on counties or city and towns, find your city or town or county, and you can see in orange the minimum allocation, and then in blue the match required under one match scenario, which is if you were to use a quarter of your local fiscal recovery funds for match.
Cody,
yeah.
the slides that you're showing is your it's not the slideshow, it's the PowerPoint, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry about
Thank
that. So we're still on the minimum allocation grants. Yeah, that one.
Okay, let me I gotta go back and reshare. I'm not as familiar with WebEx. Okay, here we go. Stop sharing. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Let me reshare. All right, now I've got to find WebEx again.
I did see that there was a question in the chat, Cody, while you're figuring it out.
Okay.
And it was that are the minimum allocation grants eligible to be used for broadband? And the answer is no. This is just for water and sewer.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
now we're seeing like the advanced screen, the black screen that has the preview.
All right, we'll figure this out.
Cody, if you go back to that screen up at the top, there's display settings and you can swap them and we'll see your full slides.
Okay, is
There you go.
there it is. Okay, great. Okay, So this is the website. Go to arpa.mp.gov, click on water and sewer, click on minimum allocation, grant program, and then scroll down and you can see your allocation. As I was saying, the numbers there in the orange are what your minimum allocation, what it is, what you're eligible for. And the number in blue is the match required if you use the match scenario that is 1/4 of your local fiscal recovery funds as match, rather than the one-to-one match. And we'll talk about that in a minute, because there are actually 2 ways that you guys can do match, and each way can be advantageous in its own scenario. All right, so eligible applicants: cities, towns, and counties for minimum allocation, and then they act as pass-through for water and sewer districts, school districts, other entities that need work done. So, if you're a county, you might have lots of water and sewer districts in unincorporated towns or that service unincorporated towns. And you can apply for your minimum allocation money to use for those projects, but you're going to operate as a pass-through for that money. And we'll talk about what that entails. So eligible projects on the water side: treatment, transmission, distribution, source, storage, consolidation, creating new public systems, water security, energy efficiency, and you can also do planning for water projects. So preliminary engineering reports or capital improvement projects focus on water systems, or water and wastewater systems. On the wastewater side, centralized wastewater treatment, energy and water conservation, stormwater projects, so long as they have a water quality benefit, agricultural best management practices, decentralized wastewater treatment, resource extraction of contaminated sites, landfills, habitat protection and restoration, groundwater protection and restoration, surface water protection and restoration, and also planning. So there are some new categories that the Treasury added and clarified in their final rule. In stormwater, culvert repair, resizing and replacement of storm sewers was clarified. It no longer requires a direct water quality benefit, but must be part of a stormwater management system. For private residential wells, testing initiatives and treatment remediation strategies that address contamination. And what's important here is that this is no longer required to be a public water system. And then potentially, this is a large expansion, lead in schools, replacement of the internal plumbing and faucets and fixtures in schools, and accredited childcare facilities. So that's actually a big change. Originally, lead service lines could be addressed basically up to the facility, but now on premise plumbing within the school itself or within the childcare facility could be covered by a minimum allocation grant funded by ARPA. And then for growth, there is clarification. Growth, we like to say that growth wasn't covered except for reasonable growth, and there's a clarification in the final rule, clarifying what reasonable growth is to a degree, and we can answer more questions about that. Autumn, anything to add on new categories of eligible projects at this time?
Oh, I do. Actually, I apologize. So the final rule also clarified the dams and reservoirs issue. And so dams and reservoirs are eligible if they're part of a public water supply system. So they have to be part of the municipal water supply for storage of drinking water. And there's some rules around that. And we had actually already adopted that because of the EPA's clarification on the drinking water SRF eligibility a while back. So it wasn't a big change for us, but the final rule did clarify that. But they also said too that dams and reservoirs that are not part of a drinking water system are not eligible. So dams and reservoirs that store irrigation water, or if it's like a recreational source, not eligible for ARPA funds.
Ashley, about how much time do we have for the presentation? I know there's some other people that are going to present that need to get on the call.
That's a great question. We typically run these about an hour or a little more. So I think Joe had planned about 40 minutes for a presentation and questions for his, but if you guys want to plan a half hour or so for yours, that'll probably put us right around the mark.
Okay. Kelly, does that work? I got a message that maybe someone else needed to be on the call.
Yeah, I thought, I'm sorry for the misunderstanding. We were just hoping for a short update from you guys at this point. I wanted to get you in, as quickly as possible, but we had already kind of planned for the Department of Homeland Security to do their CISA update. And I'm happy to set up like another town hall where we do like in-depth thing on minimum and maybe competitive if that comes back around again. But I just wanted to make sure people knew there was a deadline. Knew that you guys were really wanting people to start coming in now instead of waiting till the last minute. I don't know, the quickest we can wrap it up, the better. Thanks.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, I think Autumn and I can probably transition pretty quick to talking about, what the greatest hits that we want to make sure we get over. So Autumn, I'll stop sharing. If you want to throw the website on, and we can just answer any questions.
Sure.
And wrap up quicker.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, we have a commission meeting coming up on the 20th. And if you guys are interested in attending that or watching that, let me just show you really quick where to find that information. So you're here at the ARPA water and sewer page. We did post our round 2 competitive and irrigation rankings. And then here's the information for the Infrastructure Advisory Commission. You can always watch those live on the legislative website, but if you want to participate via Zoom or provide public comment via Zoom, the information about how to request that access is here. So just a couple of things that we're going to kind of cover at the meeting that'll be of interest to you guys is, again, the minimum allocation grants. We have a handful to approve. But I think the IAC is ready to start talking about how we want to go about transitioning any, I guess, leftover minimum allocation into the competitive program. So if you're interested in that and what that's going to look like, I would definitely tune in to listen to the meeting on the 20th. Also, we're going to have a big presentation about lead in schools. As you guys know, the Lead in Schools program kicked off in earnest this year. DEQ, Department of Health and Human Services, and OPI worked together to get a bunch of information out for schools to do their lead testing, and those results are back in. And I think that there's, and Cody, we're definitely going to visit about this more on the commission meeting on the 20th. But there's definitely pretty significant interest in how to do lead remediation in schools in the state of Montana. And so we'll be talking about that at the commission meeting. And then finally, the lead and copper rule manager from DEQ is going to be talking about the new lead and copper rule, or the lead and copper rule revisions. And that is actually going to require that public water supplies, or cities or water and sewer districts conduct an inventory of their lead service lines by a specific date. And that's going to be pretty, I don't know how much that costs, but I can't imagine it's inexpensive to do that. And so we will also be talking about potential funding options related to that. But I just want to say right now, that minimum allocation grants definitely could be used to get that lead service line inventory done. We are very concerned about the ability to do construction on projects if they're coming in late this year for applications and they haven't been well vetted. So it's really good for communities to consider doing planning, inventory, design of projects with their minimum allocation grants. And I just want to say, big thanks to everyone who has applied for minimum allocation and competitive grants and irrigation. If any of you guys are on here, the applications in the second round were really great, and the minimum allocation grant applications are getting better and better. So those are kind of just some highlights for y'all. And yeah, I guess if you guys have any questions for Cody and I, we sure can hopefully answer those.
Hey, Autumn, Cody, this is Eric. Kind of brief question and discussion, since I think the committee and you guys are getting anxious about having money left over on the minimum allocation side. Is there any consideration from program rules perspective to make it easier for counties to give their money to water and sewer districts and or cities? For example, the program that you guys sped up made the counties go through the whole entire application, even if they don't want any of the money to use for themselves, instead of saying, give them the money to the city and have the city do the application. If you wanted that money reallocated from counties that don't run water and sewer because the legislature was so restrictive in the use of these funds, can you change the program rules so the county doesn't have to do the full application and just grant those funds out to jurisdictions in their area?
Yeah, I could, I mean, that's a interesting consideration. I'd have to talk to our legal to see, yeah, if they could basically just kind of award their allocation and not necessarily act as the pass-through. I don't
That's
know.
what we thought at the beginning, that a county could designate their funds to another recipient without being the recipient in the pass-through and have all the reporting and compliance and frankly, the application pain in the butt.
Yeah.
But that's not the way the program was set up.
No, and because right now, we don't really have, we have House Bill 632 and that's it. And so the money is going to the county, right? So that's the way, that's all we have. So I could talk to legal and see what they would say, if there's any way we could do rules to fix that. But, with the clock ticking too, I don't know how quickly we could get that.
You're the girl. You would have loved it. Thank you.
But yeah, I'll look into that, Eric. I think that's a good idea.
Any other questions? All right. Well, Cody and Autumn, thank you so much for sharing your information with us. I will be sending this webinar link out to our listservs and share it with both the League and MACO to do the same. If there's anything you'd like me to include, I'm happy to do that as well for additional information. Okay.
Be happy to, I'll share that PowerPoint with you as a PDF. So if you guys want to share it, you can.
Cool. That'd be great.
I was gonna just thank you for having us. And if you guys would allow me, one last thing, we're working on doing the federal reporting for ARPA money, and we're getting a lot of questions from communities about how to do their federal reporting for ARPA funds, for their local fiscal recovery funds. So we've been, we're going to work on a couple of FAQs for the ARPA site in general. But one of the resources that, we're going to point to is back to the League and MACO as assistance for those communities as well. Just because the Treasury site, frankly, is real vague. So I know we're all in this together. So if there's a better resource for us to give folks to do their federal reporting, just let us know. I think.
No, you can send them to us, Autumn. That's what I've been working on basically every day. And I anticipate every day until April 30th, we'll be helping folks through that process.
Yeah, Cody and I were just talking about lowest quintile income this morning. So this is going to be a community lift, I think. So thanks, Kelly.
Thanks, guys. Okay, I think we need to get started, Ashley, with Joe and CISA. Joe, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Your slides look great. See if we can find it.
There we go. Sorry about that. Okay. Well, thanks again, Sandy and Ashley, for inviting me here to present on CISA services. Good morning, everyone. Happy Good Friday to all of you. My name is Joe Froelich. I work for CISA as a cybersecurity advisor and the state cyber state coordinator for our great state of Montana. Now, CISA stands for the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. It's an agency underneath the Department of Homeland Security. It's the second largest department in federal government behind Department of Defense. Some other agencies you might be familiar with: TSA, Coast Guard, Secret Service. Those are all within Department of Homeland Security. Just a little bit about my background. I was the IT director for Ravalli County here in Montana for 9 years. And after that, I transitioned. So I understand county IT government and governance from a county perspective, but we also worked closely with the city of Hamilton. So I do understand the departments and agencies and whatnot within city government as well. I transitioned to the state of Montana within 2015 as the enterprise security manager for the state. Some of my roles were training and awareness, risk management for information systems, managed the Montana Information Security Advisory Council, which is the governor's appointed council focused on cybersecurity. And last year, just over a year ago, I started with CISA. So, and excited to be here and excited to work again directly with the local governments. And if you have questions, just please ask anytime. First off, I really want to start by thanking the League of Cities and Towns for inviting me to today's town hall to speak on behalf of CISA services as well, and as well as to the Montana Association of Counties for joining today's town hall. In many ways, local elected officials and cybersecurity professionals are a lot alike. You might not think so, but both are very challenging positions, and more likely than not, you're going to hear complaints than those thanks for all the hard work and time and effort and commitment that it takes to do your position. So thank you for the service that you provide to Montana communities. Now, I want to say up front, I know that most of you are not information technology or cybersecurity professionals. I'm going to be covering a lot today on cybersecurity services that CISA provides for local governments that you can take advantage of. There's no cost to these. These are voluntary services. But you should be, and you need to be aware of them as leaders within your organizations. So this presentation is not really meant for your IT or security staff. If they're joined with you, great. But you can have the best IT staff and cybersecurity professionals working for you, but if leadership is not involved within cybersecurity, then you will not have a cyber mature environment. The more mature cybersecurity environments are ones with leadership involvement. So I'm not going to, again, have the ask of you to go out and get cyber certs or IT certs, anything like that. But you need to understand risks to your environment, especially from an IT perspective. You do understand risks. We make them every day, make the decisions while you're doing governance to your local communities. A vulnerability or a gap that might have been identified through an assessment, you just need to be aware of those at a very high level. Ask how it's going to be mitigated, and is there a plan? What's the timeline for mitigation? Your involvement is critical. To emphasize this a little bit, the first business day of every month at our nation's capital, the Speaker of the House, the Minority Leader of the House, the Senate majority and minority leaders meet with CISA, the FBI, Department of Defense, CIA leadership to discuss cyber incidents and threats to our nation's critical infrastructure. Now, none of them are cyber or IT professionals. They're just like you. leaders on a national level where you are local leaders. So please consider having a similar monthly meeting or a quarterly meeting with your IT, with your managers within your organization, talking about cyber risks to your local governments. So today's presentation, I hope to provide you with some good ideas on what to discuss during those meetings. First, just a little bit about CISA, Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, is to lead the collaborative national effort to strengthen security and resilience of America's critical infrastructure. There's two overarching goals: defend today, secure tomorrow. CISA is not the Department of Defense. We are all about securing and defending networks for critical infrastructures, not going on the offense. So something you want to make that distinction. CISA is responsible for helping to protect the nation's 16 critical infrastructure sectors from both physical and cyber threats. So here are each of those sectors shown here. Local governments are underneath the government facilities sector, but there's also, you may have multiple sectors within your jurisdictions: public health, or emergency services, water, wastewater. Already Cody spoke to the water and wastewater. That is another critical infrastructure sector. A little bit about the Cybersecurity Advisor Program. In essence, and just to make this a quick, short, I'm your local resource for federal government for cybersecurity. So what is it that I can do and what can I bring? Well, you've got a contact now that you can reach out to. And if I don't know those answers, I don't know everything, I've got a great team behind me who can. There's a number of things that I will go through today on a number of assessments that I can do. So I can do assessments. These are more strategic assessments from a holistic point of view on cybersecurity. And then you can see a number of other things that were that the cybersecurity program that you can benefit from. I think one of the biggest ones is listening and collecting stakeholder requirements and listening to whether it's the cities, towns, counties, tribal nations within Montana, where are those risk pain points, and I can kind of help with some of the assessments. And then there's also some other assessments that can be done from a national perspective, and I'll go through some of those today. Currently, there's 61 cybersecurity advisors throughout the United States. There are what is the cyber state coordinators. I am dual-hatted. I'm also a cybersecurity advisor, but I'm also a state coordinator for cybersecurity assigned to the state of Montana. The regions, there's 10 different regions that very closely match FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and that's done on purpose. If there's a national event, both regional offices for CISA and FEMA are very close to one another, so they can work directly with each other. So Montana's in Region 8. You can see here on the screen, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Utah, and then Colorado. The Colorado is where the regional office is located. So cybersecurity, it's not an impossible task. It seems like it at times. And when, day to day, within the news, you hear a lot of negative news about cybersecurity and breaches and different threat actors. But from a board perspective, you want to apply the same safeguards to cybersecurity that we do in our normal daily lives. When you leave the office at night, the doors are locked, the windows are shut. You do not have open doors, windows. You don't, at your house, you don't leave the garage door open. You don't leave for a weekend and leave things unattended. You do lock windows, lock your doors. You don't leave valuables out on the front porch, those type of things. The same methodology applies to cybersecurity systems. You just might not be able to see them, but being a part of that conversation and understanding what it is that the IT department or your IT vendor is, the risks that they're letting you be aware of, being a part of that conversation, you can kind of elevate it, especially at your level. It's definitely not an impossible task, even though it feels like it at times. So here's just a few misconceptions versus reality, especially within cybersecurity. You need a big budget. Well, that's, money's not always the solution. You can't, you can climb the mountain one step at a time, just using fundamentals. And there's a lot of free and low cost investments that your city and county can take advantage of to help you get there. There's a silver bullet solution. That's never true with most things. It's always the security is done by layers. There's always too much to do. Well, the previous slide, looking at Mount Everest, you cannot climb Mount Everest in one day. It cannot be done. Normally, on average, it takes about 6 to 9 weeks to climb Mount Everest. You have to train and prepare for that. So it's one step at a time. Same things apply to cybersecurity. This is not our problem. Somebody else owns the risk. You do own the risk. If you don't own the risk, who does? It's all about, cybersecurity is always about data. It's all about data. Not the applications itself, but what you're actually working on. And you have ownership in that. It's not just IT staff you're going to give that over back to them and it's their responsibility. No, you have to own some of that. Same with the police office, the sheriff's office, clerk and recorder, the judicial departments. They own those systems and the data. IT is there to help administer those. There is ownership. But in most of our environments, if there is a lack or that weak chain per se within a specific department, especially with cybersecurity, it could spread to other departments, and that could be whether downtime, those type of things, where it's actually costing the county, city, or town money. So besides going into some of the cyber services, first I wanted to make everyone aware of the state and local cybersecurity improvement grant program. This is through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Just wanted really for your awareness at this time. I don't have a whole lot of details outside of this slide, but this is a $1 billion grant divvied up to all 50 states and territories over 4 years. 80% of this is a pass-through to local governments. Things for you to be on the lookout for, whether it's for the League of Cities and Towns or MACO itself, or for your own city or county. The notice for funding opportunity is tentatively issued for this June or July timeframe. So be on the lookout for that. What can you do to prepare for this grant? Well, if you've applied, if your city or county's applied for any grants through the state of Montana. This is most likely going to be a very similar format. So you need to be aware of that. And if you're not aware of how to apply for state grants, make yourself familiar with that, working with the state of Montana. There is a cyber planning committee that's going to be required for this grant. The state CIO and the state CISO, one of the two or both, are going to this committee. They're going to be set up. This is going to be a role for them. So Andy Hanks is the state CISO from the state of Montana, is really going to be building this committee. So the League of Cities and Towns, or the Association Montana, the MACO, working with Andy to develop this committee is going to be crucial in the next couple of months prior to June, July. The better prepared the state of Montana is going to be as a whole, the more opportunities. The planning committee will have local government representation. That's required by the act itself. 50% of the committee members must be cybersecurity professionals, and a couple of roles of that committee is to develop a state plan, not a state of Montana plan, but a state as a whole plan. They're also going to be involved on approvals of submittals, and then those submittals and plans are going to be risen up to CISA for approval. So what does this mean for the state of Montana? You can see the annual funding here. 200 million is going to be allocated to all states and territories. Looking at calculations, you can't quote me on this, but the state of Montana is going to get right around $3 million for cybersecurity initiatives. 80% of that is going to be passed down to local governments, and 25% of the total state allocation must go to rural communities. Something to be aware of. So I'm going to jump in here and on CISA cybersecurity services. These are things that these are all no cost but voluntary services that you can take advantage of. You're not required to take advantage of any of these, but something for you to consider. The top level there, the regional resources, these are all kind of strategic planning assessments. These are things that I can do in working directly with your city, town, or county on doing to kind of give you that strategic plan, holistic, for cybersecurity. So I have there every 3 years, have a third party come in, whether it's me, whether it's the National Guard. I know MACO for the counties has some grant funds for be able to do assessments, but it's kind of a best practice every few years to have a third party come in and have that conversation with your city, town, or county. Each year, you should be, it is best practice, it is a self-assessment. And I'll speak a little bit about MSISAC and the NCSR here shortly as well. But the National Cybersecurity, the NCSR, the National Cybersecurity Review, that assessment is a free resource, and I'll speak to it through MSISAC. But to be able to apply for FEMA grants, you must have the NCSR taken. In year 2 of the grant that I just spoke of, the NCSR will also be a requirement. So it's good to familiarize yourself with that NCSR. And don't just have the IT department take the assessment, do it as a committee, and participate if you can to understand, again, holistically, what are the risks, what are some of those gaps for your city, town, county. National resources, this is vulnerability scanning. Now, this is external vulnerability scans against whether it's your website, web applications, if you have anything for your resources for the citizens of your county to log into or to look up. This is a public facing, this is a system that is public facing. So what are those risks to that? This vulnerability scanning service will help you determine those and in a nice report, both at a high level for someone like yourself and for boards and counties, commissions, that executive summary, but then also a very detailed report for the more technical staff, the IT staff as well, on how to fix. Kind of go through some of these, but these are things I highly encourage you to take advantage of. That's why I put the star there. Phishing campaign assessment, I'll go through that as well as the remote pen test. These two here, I put every 1 to 3 years. Again, really encourage these to take advantage of these free resources. I just really wanted to post this slide more. This goes into detail of the different assessments. Now, this is the cyber assessments, the strategic planning that I can help your city or town with. This is to kind of help you provide and create that strategic plan for your city, town, or county. What are your gaps? Those gap analysis, that roadmap for improvement. It's cybersecurity. It's always about continuous improvement. It's not about one, pay for it and be done. It's how are we continually monitoring our systems and shoring up any gaps that are found. So these assessments are all I'm not going to go into the great details because I don't have the time for today. But if you would like more details or a presentation from me on speaking on these specifics, I can definitely willing to do so. At the end of the presentation, I've got my contact information. So feel free to reach out to me. But again, these are all that strategic gap analysis roadmap for improvement assessments. Now, this cyber assessment, this is more of the technical ones. This is, again, that phishing campaign, the vulnerability scanning, the remote pen test. I've got those 3 up there with the stars. These are ones that I encourage you all to take advantage of now. Again, this is a little bit more detail. I'll cover some of these a little bit in some later slides. Now, some of you might be wondering, I'm a critical infrastructure, we're city, town, county. What is the federal government doing with all this data that we're collecting, whether it's through our assessments, vulnerability, technical or strategic assessments? Can we trust the federal government with our own information? Well, each assessment is done. There is the Protected Critical Infrastructure Information Program. This is actually an act through Congress back in 2002. There's kind of a correlation between this and, well, it's really stemmed from 9/11 and when those the Twin Towers fell, the aftermath of those terrorist attacks on our country. One of the gaps identified was the lack of communication and lack of information sharing. So not just between federal agencies, but also critical infrastructure owners. Most critical infrastructure in the nation, 85% of it, is owned by private sector. So Congress passed the Critical Infrastructure Information Act of 2002 to help protect. So what are those? Some of those protections: public release of Freedom of Information Act requests, the assessments that CISA does, all protected under this. Public release of state, local, tribal, territorial disclosure laws, used in civil litigation or regulatory purposes. So these are not audits. They are not going to be the requirements of any of the findings. You're not going to be required to fix them. These will be all options. Any assessments that CISA does, there'll be just more options for consideration, understanding what risks, and help you mitigate those. But it is going to be, again, this is voluntary. This is going to be up to you and your city, county to address. Wanted to mention a little bit about the protective security advisors. There is one signed to the state of Montana, Randy Middlebrook, and I've got his contact at the very end of the slide deck. These are the assessments that these are more on the physical side. I'm the more cyber, he's the physical. So there are assessments that can be done at your city, county, town, that he can be a great resource for, someone to reach out to, a good contact to have. Here's some of his assessments that you can take advantage of. So I'm going to go in a little bit more depth into the cyber hygiene scans or the services. There's actually 4 of them. These are the ones that I had in the stars. Vulnerability scanning and web application scanning. So from a perspective of a board member or a county commissioner, you're not going to be getting these reports you know, understanding and taking action and applying the patches, installing hardware, taking it, you know, but it's important that you understand the risks, again, to your environments. So this is the vulnerability and web application scanning. Again, it's against your public-facing services, those websites, web applications that the citizens are taking advantage of or can take advantage of. So both of these reports have executive summaries, the first 4 or 5 pages of them. They're very high level. So how do you or how does your IT staff report these to you at a way that you can understand? Because you're not, you don't need to understand the vulnerability itself. How can you look at these? Well, this is simple here here's how you can kind of interpret some of this and then ask. And what you're really wanting to do is you're wanting to ask the IT, you know, is there a plan to mitigate? And maybe it's not the IT staff, it could be a different department that owns that service. So what's the plan? What's the timeline for action? So here, this is the cyber hygiene, the vulnerability scanning report, 0 hosts with unsupported software. What does that mean? If you had a host that was, say, Windows XP or Windows 7, that was end of life, it's no longer supported, this would show up here as 1 or 2. You don't need to know the host name or anything about what it is. You're going to ask the question of what's the plan, what's the timeline, when is this going to be mitigated? What do I have to do? This is a risk to your organization. So 14 potentially risky services. You know, what are those? And what's the plan? Here's something, you know, when you take your car in to get an oil change, some of you may change it yourself, but I don't. I take my car in and get it changed. You never just get the oil change. They're going to come out with the report. You know, hey, here's the reds, the yellows, and the greens. And the reds are something, you know, your engine's going to explode, your tires are going to blow off, whatever, and you need to address those. This report, both web application and vulnerability scanning, reds, oranges, mediums or blues, lows, reds, critical, highs. What are we doing about them? In this report, there's 1 high. Okay, what's the plan? How are we going to mitigate? You don't need to know what it is or what it's to. If it was, say, your police office or your sheriff office server that this is applied to, that should raise that level up a little bit on, hey, we need to really address this in quick manner. But you really don't want to, you want to minimize these numbers and risks to your organization. Sometimes you have to live with them. And that's talking it out with your department heads, with the managers, with your IT staff. Are we going to accept this risk? So it's up to you to make that determination. Here's the active number, the max age of active criticals and the max age of active highs. So this one high, it was CISA is seeing this for 153 days. It's been active. You want to make sure that those are narrowed down. It shouldn't be 153 days to actually patch a high vulnerability, especially or a critical. So these are things, this is awareness that you can actually ask, things that you can, a good discussion points with your IT committee or with your IT staff, with other managers within your town, city, county. Don't just make this a conversation with IT, or just give it to IT or your IT vendor and say, you guys deal with this. It's all about awareness. Real quickly, this is from CISA's Cyber Risk Summary. These are some great stats. These are the metrics that you could also ask and talk about too with your group. Here's the median numbers. So this summary here is CISA's vulnerability and web application scanning. This is from January 2020 to December 2020. The 2021 report has not been released by CISA yet. I hear it's going to be soon, but these are great metrics that you, again, can talk to with your IT and with your IT committees in this group. The median number of days to remediate criticals and high vulnerabilities for state, locals, tribal and territorial governments is 210 days for critical vulnerabilities. What does that mean? CISA starts a scan on one of your systems. It finds a critical. What's from the time that the scan starts, that it's found, to the time that it is either removed from the network or patched? What is that time length? 210 days on average for state, local governments. That is way too long. This is why we're in the predicament that we are on a continual basis, whether it's ransomware, whether it's other malware going on in our environments. We're not doing an effective way of patch management. Why is this? Again, this goes back. It's not just, you cannot blame your IT staffs. This is a whole, this is your organization as a whole, not just the IT. So you need to be aware of these risks. So 210 days for remediation of a critical, 145 days. Where are you? Do you know this number for your environment? Where are we in compared, our city, town, our county, in compared to this? Here's just some other great metrics that you can use from this slide deck. But one that I wanted to point out, the median time for state and local critical vulnerabilities with known exploits is 418 days. That's over a year old. What is known exploits, critical vulnerabilities with known exploits? That means that threat actors are actively exploiting that vulnerability and it's been known and reported in other environments, other states, other locals, or other critical infrastructure. These are active exploits to vulnerabilities. So 418 days, that's way too long on vulnerabilities. Federal systems required to patch. Now, are they doing this? This is up to debate, but the policy, the governance part, federal systems are required to patch critical vulnerabilities within 14 days, highs within 30. This has been elevated, as you can imagine over the last couple of years of the importance of patching. So something to talk about within your organization. Phishing campaign assessment. This is great. This is, again, if you already have a phishing campaign within your organization, terrific. You could supplement it with this. This is a CISA offering. It's a six-week engagement. You get to determine who is going to be phished and who's not. It's going to be all your employees or just a department. That's great. There's a weekly report on the click rates. At the end, you get a good report, a professionally looking report to have that discussion. How is your phishing is still about 90% of all breaches come through phishing. So this is something that you want to, this is always that training and awareness part of your cybersecurity program. You want to make sure that your employees understand what to spot and how to spot a phishing email. So take advantage of this free offering. Remote pen test, I really won't go into this, but it's this is really utilizing the vulnerability, the web application scanning, and the phishing assessment, as well as open source intelligence gathering. It's a great assessment, great report at the end. These are, again, great metrics for you to talk about and with your IT committees. How did you do within these reports? What can be shored up? What are those risks to your city, town, county? How am I doing on time here? It's almost 40 minutes in.
Yeah, Joe, you're at 10 o'clock, so.
Okay, all right. So you have my slide deck, and I'm going to just kind of go through where the cyber tabletop exercises. CISA can do this. Some incident response assistance if you need that. Your IT staff, your IT vendor. MSISAC is kind of your go-to as well. That can help with incident response. CISA Central as well. Incident reporting, very much different than incident response. You need to report your cyber incidents. This kind of helps everyone as those are collected and distributed, those indicators of compromise. CISA, the .gov has moved to CISA. This is a free resource, really wanting or making that request to move your organization from a .org, .us to a .gov. Why? Because anyone can purchase a .us or .gov, or not a .gov, .us, .org, .com, email it, or a domain, and have a website where phishing malware could be distributed through. You want a trusted public resource for your citizens. So .gov can only be only U.S. governments can purchase a .gov domain. Look into this. This is really for your HR office, National Cybersecurity Workforce Framework. This is all about hiring IT professionals, cybersecurity professionals. So, and using the same nomenclature for those. Cybersecurity analyst here in Montana is very much different than a cybersecurity analyst of, say, Washington or even Idaho. This will help help you create those job descriptions and then also for the workforce itself. A lot of great free training out there. Look through this. Stop Ransomware. I'm sorry I do not have enough time on this, and I went a little bit long on some of those other ones, but I really want to point out on Stop Ransomware that ransomware readiness self-assessment. Take that as an organization. Take that assessment. Where do you stack up? What are those gaps that are identified through that? Do you have good backups? Is the critical data encrypted? This will help you walk through that. MSI-SAC, it's outside, this is mostly funded by Department of Homeland Security, but this is a resource for state, local, tribal governments. Lots of free resources. You can see them, the no-cost services. Take advantage of the malicious domain blocking and reporting. That's a free resource. There's also some fee services here that can be provided, but that MDBR, if there is a phishing link that is known to be a malicious domain, it is clicked on in your environment. If you're using this and it's set up properly, it will help block that. Free resource. Take advantage of that. There's some great information for Montana sharing opportunities, both state of Montana, the MATIC, and the National Guard. Cybersecurity, again, just to emphasize, is not an IT only job. It's an organizational wide responsibility, and you play a major role within that. These are all entities that can be a service to your city, county, and local government. So here's an action plan for next week. Schedule a monthly or quarterly cyber risk non-public meeting and invite the IT, security, DES staff, or your emergency services staff, office or department managers. Now discuss this with legal. I know the Montana's open public laws, but this is again talking about risks within your environment. So talk with your legal first, and then have a committee, but participate in that. You need to elevate cybersecurity. And so I've provided some quick, the meetings could be quickly as 15 or 30 minutes, but I provided lots of different topics for you to consider for those meetings, and discussion, finding out maybe CISA services or MSISAC services might be something or a great option for you. Maybe they're not, but there are options to consider. Look at the upcoming Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and be aware of that. Are you a member of MSISAC? Do you have somebody within the IT, or your IT vendor is a member? Become one if not. And then I've got some other things. These are all links. So this will be sent out to everyone. Oops, I'm not sure. Not sure what that is, but are there any questions? I'm sorry, I kind of ran out of time and went on a little bit, but somebody's making some great notes, I see, on my slide. Is there any questions? I'm really sorry I went long. Here is my contact information. Again, I believe Ashley or Kelly or I can send out, you can reach out to me. I'd be happy to provide the slide deck to you. There's actual, with the PDF, there's links to the information.
No, Joy, I just wanted to thank you so much. That was super helpful, and I apologize for the screw up with the timing there. That's really our fault. So I have a feeling this will be not the only time. We will invite you back to provide this kind of service. We've always got turnover, and hearing something just once is never enough for any of us. So we'll stay in touch and make sure we get your information in front of folks as many times as we can. Any questions from folks? Everyone's freaked
Thanks
out.
again for inviting me. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it. So Ashley, you mentioned you will send out the link.
Yeah, so it usually takes just a few hours for it to render, and then I'll send the link, and Joe has already sent me the PDF version of the slides, so I'll include that. I'll send it to our listservs and then send it to the League and MACO to share it on anything they have to reach others as well.
Perfect.
I don't see any questions in the chat, so this is kind of a last call.
You stunned them into silence, Joe.
I hope not. I hope
Yes.
not. I hope that it was helpful information.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, I think with that, Kelly, is there anything you want to say to wrap up?
No, I think we're good. Everybody have a fantastic weekend. Hopefully the snow will start going away.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it. I'll get that recording out. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of us. And if we don't have the answer, we'll find you somebody who does.